Now recording.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special episode of Roundtable Report. I'm your host, Shaylee.
I'm Jazzy.
So today we have two special guests with us. We have Perp and Palpatine. They are the team leads for our two cutting edge teams.
Yeah, Palp is team lead of Empire and Perp is team lead of Draconic. Good
So,
job, yeah.
so how are
Yo,
things?
thanks.
Good.
Yeah,
Are you
just vibing.
enjoying the farm so far?
Yeah, I think our farm's been okay. Get the re-kills going, so can't complain.
Yeah, reclears just picked up for us, and with all the new trials that we had, where we locked out on Echo, some of the reclears were a learning process at first, but we're kind of smooth sailing now.
Good.
I mean, that happens anytime you bring new people in. It's because they're not used to working with you or they've never seen it or both.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
recruited like 9 people after Rashok, so
oh,
and then like a handful of people while we were on the last two bosses. So yeah, there was definitely going to be some reprog there.
and relearning some of those later fights with fresh people is always
Mhm.
rough too. So,
Yeah.
Getting the Echo Notharian weakors to work again.
Oh,
I don't know what
no.
you're talking about. Ours worked perfectly every time.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. 100%. I'm not lying.
We didn't
Sure,
waste
we'll
an
go
hour
with
and a
that,
half
Jazzy.
because someone didn't update theirs. Nope.
Oh. Oh man. All right. Well, before we get too terribly into the current raid, uh what about question here about difficulty for previous tiers, namely Vault or another comparison would be SOD since it was the second raid of Shadowlands. That's the expansion, right? Sure, why not? How do we feel about difficulty? Harder, less hard?
I felt this tier was pretty easy. I think the bosses weren't too bad, and I feel like the character preparation was majorly easy. We could cut off all of our standards for character preparation with our raiders pretty early because of just the gear acquisition. Definitely one of the easiest, but that won't be the case, I think, going forward.
I
What
would
about you, Palp?
say the raid itself was fine as far as difficulty. I think Blizzard tried to make it too hard with the whole private auras, and they're reinventing the wheel. I think caused more issues that the raiders just found their way out of anyway. So it just caused extra just crap that we had to do, like those weak auras. Gear was probably the fastest I've ever been, which obviously won't be the case again. So that's yeah. It was probably on par with SOD.
Yeah,
It was just made complicated because of Blizzard's private auras, which
there was fights where the private auras I felt like okay, for instance, experiments, the private aura for the bleed, the leap is like a fine private aura because it's pretty easy to deal with 3 people, 3 bleeds, put 3 markers out. It's just pretty easy to space that out. But then like the way they did the private auras on Echo was probably the worst possible use case for it. I mean, having 5 hearts go out with such a small amount of space and little amount of time to get 5 people to coordinate and not expect weak auras to be used is just kind of wild in my opinion.
Especially when like you said, the experiments weak aura or the experiments private aura can just be solved with geometry, right? You,
Right.
you just
Yeah.
you go into a triangle, all three of you, away from people, and there's no possible way you could get double hit. It's geometrically impossible. But the 5, especially before they nerfed the
Nerf the
size,
size. Yeah.
you're dealing with there's no way.
So
Yeah.
is
I
that
just can't rack my brain around their thought process, private ordering hearts.
No, they shouldn't.
look? I don't. Mythic raid is that the red circle that you get
Yes.
around you? Okay.
On Echo, it's the giant circle, and on Mythic, they're giant, and they will kill you, and you have very specific spots you need to go to. But since it's a private aura, you can't say, okay, you go to this spot, you go to this spot, you go to this spot. You have to get extra complicated and have stuff talking to each other kind of in a roundabout way. It's not the best use. They should not have made that one a private aura.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun.
No. What do you think this raid did better than other raids in the past?
I think
Define better.
easier, more intriguing, a good mechanic that worked. Just subjective, completely subjective.
I think there was some good design philosophy in the raid, and then some to juxtaposition that was really bad design philosophies. Like I think this is like one of the biggest talking points for most people throughout the season was Rashok was a really good boss. It was in a terrible position in the raid as far as where you like which boss in order you go to. Rashok being the fourth was not great, and it looks like we're gonna have a similar situation next year. The fight was great, but design wise, but difficulty and position in the raid was not great. Um, and then Siskarn was kind of the opposite, probably the worst design fight that they've ever done, really. Definitely up there. And it was mid tier, and then you had Magmarax after that, which is not a bad fight, just not hard.
I would say what they made better this tier was there was none of the DPS holding crap we had to do in SOD or previous tiers. Essentially, was you got more gear the faster you could go. There was no hold. There was never a hold thing going on.
Yeah, there was never a stand there and dance moment like there was in SOD. Even on heroic mode, we had them.
Yeah,
It was KT and SOD. It was just so bad. Just that
Mm-hmm.
even next to Skarn, which I will agree is a terrible fight, KT takes the cake as worst fight ever. Ever. That fight did nothing good in SOD. It was just so bad. Never again, Blizz. Skarn was it was really fun learning Skarn 3 different times in 3 different ways. That was admittedly that was real fun because they kept changing it.
Because why leave it alone?
They
well,
had to keep fixing it, quote unquote.
yeah, and then fixing it changes your timers, and yeah, the whole thing just was a mess.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. So let's talk about prep for the tier. What about did y'all do enough prep? Not enough prep? Is there certain things you wish you had done?
I think our prep was on point as far as what we did and how we do things with our Sundays and raid plans and channels and everything else. So from that prep standpoint, I think that's kind of where we set the bar, and we'll just have to do it again for um, the tree. But yeah, I think prep was okay for us.
Yeah, I think prep for us was better than last season. We were able to kind of set expectations a little bit differently, after the team shakeup and figuring out where we wanted to go as a team. I think having expectations kind of drawn out and holding people accountable was better this season. We're definitely looking to make improvements going into next season. And since gear acquisition isn't going to be the same, we'll be able to get a hold of a decent amount of gear, especially tier early, but getting a hold of eye level is going to be a lot more difficult. So, probably upping the bar on preparation as far as character, you know, power and individuals getting their, vault slots filled and stuff like that.
You'll mention it a few times, the gear acquisition. Yeah, I've saw that it's going to be slower and there's just more length to each of the gear tracks, quote unquote, that they're calling. Do you think this is a good
No.
thing or a bad thing, or what do you think about the general pacing that it's looking like? Not necessarily what it currently is, because I agree it's way too fast now.
It's all
Yeah.
relative to what they actually scale the raid to, because they're making the raid jump up 30 eye levels, which normally is fine. Well, okay, I take it back. They haven't done that in a long, long time. I'm trying to think when the last time we had a big jump was. Probably like more. This is more like a jump from like the expansion launch to a first raid. But I think they're doing it to get rid of the power gain you're going to have with all the trinkets. So they don't want you using previous tier trinkets because it'd be just so much higher for the new stuff. But they obviously gave us too much power too quickly, and they didn't want people locking as early as we did and farming for as long as we did just to get our max slots and be done. We were done getting max slots a month and a half ago, 2 months before people were just like don't know what to do with their sparks. I don't think that's quite right. So As long as the raid is tuned appropriately for the power gains we're getting, I think it'll be fine. If they overtune the raid, it would be like another Sepulchre situation.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on the cadence of the patch, like how long they want it to run for, and like what their goals are. Because I know there's going to be some point whatevers in that patch to add, probably tack on more story. Who knows? Maybe even a mini raid. Just depends on how long they decide to go. But I think gear acquisition was way too fast this season, and as a recruiter for a team, I would much rather have something a little bit more meaningful and a little bit more paced out, so player retention's higher. That's good for recruitment as well. So for raid team health, for a CE team, it's better if things aren't too front loaded, because people get their eye level, they get the gear, and then if you run into a situation like where they kind of drop the ball on Mythic plus tuning, then you lose all those player base too, because they've taken a break for the season. So I feel like we just had a lot of players fall off because of how quickly they could get like all their items and be super happy with their character, and then the Mythic Plus season was kind of torn apart, so we lost just a huge part of our player base, which made it tough for us as far as like recruiting. So I'm pretty optimistic for them slowing down the pace a bit.
Yeah, especially I believe so. For those who don't know, I guess, uh, the crest fragments are gone. The stuff will just drop whole crests or not. Each of the tracks, the veteran, champion, whatever track is longer. So there's more upgrade levels. But I'm pretty sure that the acquisition itself is also going to be toned down quite a bit. Again, still pending tuning numbers at the moment, but yeah.
We will have access to tier week 1, the catalyst. So like having the catalyst week 1 and
Oh, I
being
like
able to get
that.
tiers sooner is going to help make the classes feel better, while we'll have to chase the actual item level a little bit longer.
So the catalyst is open week 1, but it only gains a charge every other week.
Every other week, but that's still a
It's
much
still,
faster track than last season as far as tier. So
I
they're
think
kind of,
it's,
yeah,
what is it,
balancing it out
six
that way.
at the 6 week mark, it would be equivalent. And then it's actually slower past the 6 week mark. But after 6 weeks, that means that you have 4 catalyst charges, which means you can get 4
I
set instantly.
mean,
So
Yeah,
it's kind of a moot point at
we're
that.
gonna have 4 set at the same time that by the time Catalyst came out last season.
Yeah.
Well, as someone who plays alts, I hope they attune that later on the tier, just so the alts don't feel like they're hamstrung.
Well, the
I'm
alts will be
assuming it'll
gaining them at
be,
the same
yeah.
rate. So
They're gonna,
from
Right,
day
yeah, they're gonna
but
have
one,
them.
but right, but if you play an alt later in the tier and you burn your charges early on to get your 4 piece, and then want to catalyst stuff again at a higher eye level, once you're doing the gear grind, you can come into a situation where you are out of charges on their
oh, I
smash.
see. Catalyzing stuff and then replacing it.
Yeah, and then recatalyzing again because it's an alt. You're trying to get powered early, so you'll just catalyze whatever you can for 4 piece, and then do your Mythic Plus grind, get gear, and then catalyst that stuff. You know, you'll be short if you do it too often early on.
Yeah, they
But
haven't said
that's
whether or
an
not they're doing
alt.
that, but
Yeah, that's an alt thing. But yeah,
oh, I'm gonna be keeping 2 up to date.
oh really?
Yeah, I still haven't decided if I'm swapping to the priest.
Oh my goodness. You're gonna have to make that decision sooner or later, you know that, right?
I know, I know.
Okay. Sorry, sidetracked. That's never happened before on the podcast ever.
Never.
Never today. Back to uh current tier and prep, because I may or may not have a vested interest in spreadsheets. Um, what what do y'all what y'all's favorite tools for prep? Spreadsheets, rate plan, Word, Abacus, Notepad, uh,
Notepad plus plus.
AutoCAD, like.
I would say for us, I like the combination of using the videos with the raid plans, and then just walking through the raid plan as we're going through the videos from PTR testing or recent kills or whatever it is. It's a good combination. That way people can see it, and then they know what the plan is supposed to do because it goes in the ERT.
Yeah, I think VODs, raid plans, Dario's healing sheets, and any other early access, like cooldowns or things that we can get from like the community, try to get a hold of early.
Okay. Oh, here we go. This is a good one. What specifically was the most difficult mechanic and or fight this tier?
That the raid team had difficult to read because some of these mechanics I don't think they should have been as hard as they were, but we made it harder than it needed to be.
Not who derped the hardest, but just
Derp the hardest.
I'd
But
probably
what did you
say
personally
the
find the hardest thing to do?
volcanic hearts probably was the hardest. Just
Was it
because
because of the mechanic or because of the
the
private aura?
the whole entire thing, the RNG of it, who got it, what number you could be, spots you had to memorize. Like it's just, yeah, the whole thing was just, it was overly complicated and probably the hardest part of it all.
What about you, Perp?
I feel like, with our 21st man, the hearts was kind of, I think the add-ons, like the weak ores was the hardest fucking mechanic for that fight. It wasn't even the mechanic itself. I think just getting the raid on the same page took, the first time was 17 pulls to get everyone's weak ore working. So that's a lot of pulls just to get a weak ore working. And then just specifically to our team, we obviously really hit a road bump with experiments. So funny enough, I think experiments was our toughest boss this season.
What was getting you on experiments?
Um, we had, so as you know, our team went through a lot last season. We had a complete reformation during Broodkeeper. Um, Finished off the tier, and then slow changes. But then one of the things that I did was like swapped off tank to heal, because I was doing the heal sheets and heal leading and stuff anyway. So I thought it made sense to do that. But it didn't in the long run. We had two tanks that just couldn't, good mythic plus, good at pressing their buttons. Not really the right frame of mind for CE rating. Not great communication when you put them in there together, and then their ability to execute the tank mechanics and stay alive were pretty much non-existent. I mean, we even had to try to convince them that they could control where the orb went, and they didn't believe me that the orb went forward. So
Why would they?
it took them over 100 pulls to realize they could control the orb on that boss too. So once we got to about 140 pulls, we decided to cut them, and then we killed it within 10. But sometimes you run into walls where communication is super important, and that can be one of the more difficult things with a team that's gone over, overcome a lot of change, especially with the roster. So it was definitely like our first big hurdle was, okay, this boss actually takes a little bit of communication and coordination, especially with the tanks, and they just didn't have any of it. So that was really hard for us. And then recovering from that, there was definitely some hard bosses. Rashok was pretty hard. It was our first boss that we had to do a bunch of cooldowns for. And then I think the weak aura setup and kind of the add-on setup for Echo was a bit much. Everything else felt pretty good.
Yeah, I'm pretty fortunate that me and my co-tank go back quite a ways. So it's pretty handy as far as communication goes. That's definitely a positive thing.
Yeah, you just have to. I've learned. I've gone through 10 tank recruits since last season, which is a
Oh,
lot.
that's tough.
Um, it's really hard to find people that can be accountable for themselves. I think to be a CE tank, you only need really a few things. You don't have to, damage parses don't matter, right? Which they are good if you can learn to optimize while you're doing the other important things first. And some people will debate with me on this, but I think tank damage is for fun once the tank is comfortable and not as much for like actual progression. But being able to call your externals, if you make a mistake or that you're coming up on something that you're going to need it for, just being able to identify that on the fly, being super consistent, and just being able to communicate with your co-tank and the heal team are just like so core to being a CE tank that um, and also just kind of keeping your composure and not freaking out if your co-tank dies. You never know how far you can go if you're rotating externals and personals. So I think finding all those traits in a tank is very difficult. There's a lot of people that love to, tank keys, but it just doesn't translate into raid.
It's just not the same.
It's not. If only somebody had written a blog post about what makes a good tank great, and the number one thing on there was stay alive. Who would have done such a thing?
Yeah, if you think you're gonna die, just don't.
Sorry.
Just don't.
That's a personal shout out to me writing a blog post about making good tanks great. Self proc or self promotion. Yeah. So let's talk about coming up stuff because coming up stuff is more fun. Um, what do you think the major difference between CE teams and non-CE teams are in general? What is that special sauce that actually gets you the last boss kill versus a mythic prog team?
This goes. This is a life thing too, but it's you. You have to not quit. Once you quit once, whatever you do in life or in the game, it makes it easier to quit when times are tough. And nothing in Mythic Prog is ever easier down the stretch. So it comes back to just personal fortitude, I guess you call it. Where,
That's a buff from the priest.
yeah, well, you basically, yeah. So as long as you have the mindset of I'm not going to quit till I'm done, no matter if it's life, Tiddlywinks, WoW, whatever, it's the same. You'll see to the end. That's the difference between a prog and a cutting edge, because you can get the mechanics and nothing's too complicated, but it's a matter of just willingness to finish. And too many times I see people quit and they never finish, and then you check on them throughout and you'll see them still quitting. And so it's just kind of it's that mindset of not quitting.
Yeah, I can elaborate on it too. Because I mentor a lot of teams and raiders, and I'm also a mentee. So I'm always having the conversation of, what is going to push a team over that next hurdle, whether it's, a mythic team trying to get their first CE, a race to world last CE team, and then like a top 500 team. Because there's just different things that go into it. Experience is part of that for sure. But I think like the big difference between CE teams that have consistently been doing it and new teams is kind of just getting your goals kind of set up and getting people that all want to contribute the same amount and put the same amount of effort. It's really hard to kind of align those goals and then get people to be accountable for the things that they need to do in order to get C, whether it's outside of raid prep, which is very important, and then also accountability within the raid. So, making sure that if things are going wrong, you're, you know, not call out culture in a way, but just like making sure that people are accountable. And that goes for everybody, no matter what their role or rank is on the team. So accountability is huge. Like setting those expectations is huge, and then it's true what Palp said. You know, having to tough through those difficult moments, but also trying to find solutions to those difficult moments. Like we're hitting a wall. Why? Where are pain points? Why are we wiping? What's counterintuitive in this fight? Like look at the strategies and try to figure out what to improve on, but also where like can I fix morale as a leader. So it's like really important as leadership in a CE team to look at ways to kind of continue to lift the team up. Um, but I also think one thing when you talk to Mythic Raiders and when you talk to people that are like consistently CE. I find the biggest difference is the people that aren't consistently CE that seem to, or that haven't gotten it at all, that seem to be the ones that burn out on like higher pull counts, aren't taking those higher pull counts to better themselves. They're not finding the enjoyment of improving and optimizing from pull to pull, because that really makes the pull count feel a lot less like straining on your mental health. And I find some experienced players are like this, but I find a lot of newer players tend to deflect maybe where some of their failures are and try to find where the team is going wrong instead of like just focusing on improving. Um, so it's like definitely a split in mindset. I think, you know, working on self improvement and being accountable for yourself as an individual. Like if you have a raid team full of those type of people, you're gonna get cutting edge and you're gonna be pretty successful.
I know that's something that I do is from pull to pull. Not like the initial ones, but once we're settled in, just need to get to P2 to actually see P2 and prog it. I'll set checkpoints for myself of okay, I should be hitting keg smash here. I'll be hitting this here. I'll be hitting this here, just along the way, and occasionally I'll miss that. And those are my things to fix next pull. Like there's super minor things, but they're things that I know need to be fixed, etc. So that's definitely something, the personal fix little stuff
Yeah,
every
Well,
pull.
it's being able to, like Perp said, be self-critical, but also self-scout, right? Like if you're, you know, if you're a mythic raider, are you looking at the raiders who've done the raid or finished it and look at what they're doing, or comparing yourself to them, pushing yourself to that level, or are you just, like Perp said, throwing your hands up and saying, "Oh, it's somebody else's fault. It's the team's fault. It's this fault. I'm going to quit." Type, it's it's being able to self scout as well, prepping, looking at comparisons, and being able to understand the differences between what you're doing and they're doing.
Or even saying, how can I help these people that are struggling? Classic example for me is on Rashok. I noticed people were struggling getting out with the slams. So I was throwing Tiger's Lust on every one of them, every single time. I don't care if they're Demon Hunter and actually go through the wall because that's how Fell Rush works. They're getting Tiger's Lust. Things like that to just help and make sure that it happens. Yeah, I agree. That's working as a team, being self-critical, etc. It's great stuff.
I think too, like it's I think the individual accountability is like a really big part, and it's something we're going to emphasize next season. As far as like our preparation strategy, we're also going to reduce on clutter of information, like from the raid. I think you and I talked about this, Jazzy, where I think next season, as far as like prep and information goes, we're going to focus, like narrow down on a few key questions for each boss instead of like giving a bunch of filler information that seems to be pointless. It's like I think our ideas going into next season are gonna be like, what's gonna kill us? Like what's gonna kill the raid? Like what's gonna wipe the raid? What's gonna kill an individual? And what seems counterintuitive? And leave any of the other BS like swirlies on the ground, or things that we just know as a visual and design language within World of Warcraft that we don't really need to like put that information in the channel. I think the big thing is just going to be increasing retention of knowledge before we go in, and then set expectations for character preparation and make sure everyone is contributing equally outside of the raid, and people are going to be accountable for that. Um, we did that this season, and we're going to do it again next season, I think, but maybe a little bit more um, fleshed out.
Well, I told Jazzy flat out the Liquid Week, or I don't want to use that thing again. That thing was way too many information overload. Like just shrink
There
it
was a lot,
down,
yeah.
give it to me short and quick, and memo style it, and just try to keep it down to what we need in the week or a section.
I mean, I can give you a week aura for every single boss, and all it will say is a text that's on your screen, and it says, "Don't die."
Don't die.
That's it. Problem solved. Win every fight. Done.
Oh my god. I mean, living
I
is
agree.
key.
Yeah, I agree that the liquid pack, if you're doing it, it's yeah, there was a lot to it. I don't plan on using the entirety of it. I will probably pick and choose what goes into it.
Yeah, I think even our prep jazz is we're trying to hit key points more so than we have in the past, because like a lot of stuff like Perp says filler. It's
Yeah.
what is the meat potatoes like actual thing here that's going to kill me, or I
It's
have to do.
also we're not it as a CE team. Our members aren't coming from less progressed, and they shouldn't need to be told dodge swirlies, don't stand in the fire. They shouldn't need to be told the
But
basics.
DPS,
Yeah, fire is not a damage buff.
sure it is.
But then when they die to fire, you're like, okay, maybe you do need your handheld.
Yeah. Speaking of slightly less progressed, what do you think is the biggest barrier to entry for non-CE teams to get their first CE?
Roster. Because it's not
In
just the
unison
roster.
now.
It's
Right.
it's not just the roster. It's when you're so people want progression, right? And I think Perp can see this in recruiting. So if you're recruiting from a position of strength because you have cutting edge, you can recruit players who may not have it who want it. If you're only 3 or 4 in the raid and people are way ahead of you, it's harder to recruit the players you need to get you there. So the barrier to entry is really just your roster and how fast can you progress to keep the players you have happy so they stay, allowing you to recruit more to then stay, and then you build that way. Too many times you'll see, I mean, we even saw this in our own Empire 1, right? We missed it by 1% on Sire and then poof, blew up. And then we had to go again, right?
I was
So,
watching that pull. That was so hard.
yeah. I mean, no one on the team but myself and Ridon are from that team. So, it's the barrier to entry is your roster and how fast you can progress to keep people happy so they stay. Because Raiders are going to go if they're not happy, they're going to go.
Roster. So like, I agree with everything Palp said, and I could probably elaborate too, more on it because I think it's an interesting subject. Because it is, we said it at the same time because I knew he was going to say it too. But it's like it is the first hurdle, and when you're talking to anyone building a team, running a team, or that has run a team or is, that is always like the first kind of discussion that you have as someone that's done it, and it's because it is the hardest part. Um, and like Palp said, it's very hard to get those initial people in. So like when you're building your first team with the goal of CE without ever having achieved it, or maybe only achieved it once, there are a lot of things you just don't know about the game, and there's a lot of uncertainty with a new team. So getting a roster that are going to commit to the times is one. So you have to have typically good times to start, and then you have to recruit for it, which means as leadership of a new CE team or a newly formed team or a team that has changed their goals to be CE, leadership is going to have to be prepared to take on a lot of extra responsibility that CE teams don't even have to take on, in a lot of cases, which is going to be, you know, not only are you going to have to take sacrifices and risk by recruiting people with little to no experience, but that are hungry to do the thing, and hope that their personality meshes as you're starting to build. But you're going to have to take on the responsibilities of essentially what a whole officer core that is structured and built out in a CE team would have to do as a new team. So you're going to be doing all of the healing assignments to start. You're going to be taking on the responsibility of mentor and teacher to a lot of people, which means you're going to have to learn a lot. There's just so much that you have to do and learn to get to the point where you need to build a team to become CE. You have to be willing to teach a lot of new people the ins and outs, get them set up with feedback and constructive criticism that's going to benefit them and help them grow as players, because recruiting high level players is going to be a lot tougher than building high level players or players that are playing at the same level as the leadership building the team. So um, there's a lot that goes into fresh teams or mythic teams that are trying to be CE for the first time, and leadership has to take on the grunt of that. And hopefully, as they're building up their team, they're learning delegation of task and responsibilities and are able to kind of share in that responsibility of building a team and running a team, and it gets a little bit easier. But the recruitment never gets easier. It's just you have to start somewhere, and you also have to be willing to make sacrifices and take risk on people, and help build them up as players. I do
think
that. So they definitely have to do that.
I do it too, and I think sometimes recruitment people are afraid of taking chances. Like Jazzy, how many times have I taken a chance just to swing at somebody who may not make it, but sometimes you hit, sometimes you don't, but you have to go take the swing either
Yeah,
way.
you gotta.
You've done it a number of times. In fairness, I think you're batting about 50-50, but the ones that have made it
That's
have
not
been
bad.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I think I recruited 9 players this season that have never gotten CE before, and 4 of them have stuck, and they're amazing players. And I think they've learned a lot, and they're still hungry, you know. But yeah, it's just you always have to be recruiting, and you also have to learn to, just like in leadership in like a corporate setting, you're gonna have to learn to make decisions that are of the best interest of the team, like however that may be. And that means kind of maybe disassociating some of the feelings you have, especially if it's something that's best for the team. There's a lot of decision making that can be tough when you're trying to get your team to CE, and sometimes you have to sideline certain feelings to make good decisions. There's a lot of difficult things that go into getting a CE team together and keeping it together.
There's a reason I am no longer a team lead. I have no desire to do that.
Bad Jazzy.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a lot.
yeah. It is a lot.
We are, yeah, it's definitely just unpaid work, but it pays off because, you know, a lot of people get to have fun and you can create the space that you want to be a part of. And I think that's definitely the benefit of starting a team.
I feel like one of the unheard or the unsung benefits of taking a quote unquote diamond in the rough, right? Taking somebody who hasn't gotten CE or a team that hasn't gotten CE, you get to kind of sculpt them into what you want or how you want it to how we want them to function.
Right. Yeah. So I'm a senior level designer, and I've hired and recruited, and I've mentored and mentored designers, and I much prefer, you know, less experienced, you know, designers as far as like mentorship, because they're gonna, you know, you can mold them into, you know, better designers by giving them those good habits early. And we noticed a lot of our new players just had bad habits. The biggest thing for them to get over is the bench thing. A lot of people aren't used to that, and you really see that with the newer players. It makes them uncomfortable to get rotated out, and I understand that. But it is one of the things I talk heavily about with the new players and let them know like our reasoning, and I try to be really transparent with our communications to them about why we're rotating people. And it doesn't always work. People will just leave because they get rotated, even though it's literally just, you know, we have to have a bench and we have to rotate people. And the way I look at it is no one on the bench is just a bench player. They're all players on the team that are just out on the starting lineup or the kill lineup, but it doesn't mean that they're not as, you know, important to the team as anyone else that's in. But the newer players have trouble with that. But you can really start to break bad habits during prog, um, and, you know, kind of mold them into the Raiders you want them to be. So that's definitely a really big benefit of taking on less experienced but hungry players, because I pretty much believe in anybody. I think anyone is capable of doing anything they want to. So if people express to me they're like really hungry and they're really enjoying the game and they love it, I'll take that over a jaded veteran any day, to be honest. Because some people have just played this game forever and they just don't enjoy the game, but they keep playing it, and that's not always great for raid vibes either. So
I feel attacked. Oh
I
man.
mean, I'm kind of a jaded player. I've been playing for a long time.
I've
Been
been
around
play-
for a hot minute.
Look, I've been playing since day one alpha, and I still enjoy the game.
Oh
Yeah, I
god.
think enjoying the game versus enjoying what you have to do in order to get cutting edge, I think are kind of two different things.
Yeah, there's a lot of work. Speaking of a lot of work, Amir Drasil, or as Pop calls it, the tree.
The
Even though it doesn't
tree.
happen at the tree until the very end. Spoiler? Um, yeah. So I'm assuming raid prep has already begun. Yes or no?
I mean, yeah, I mean, we did the PTR. I mean, we went in the normal and saw it firsthand. That was kind of nice.
It was remarkably polished for even normal still.
That friendship bracelet was causing problems, but yes.
Maybe for you.
I couldn't change anything once I had it on. I had to be. I couldn't change a trinket or a talent or anything. I had to go die and then swap. But it was pretty good. I mean, I think it was a good foray into the raid to see just the base level mechanics. I mean, obviously they'll build upon it and then you'll go from there. But it was nice to see it firsthand.
So wait, you have to die to get rid of something so you can change talents or gear?
Well, the
It's a
friendship
bug trinket.
It's just a bug trinket. Yeah.
It would keep it. It's constantly looking for friends to keep changing your stats. So once you got into combat, it would never leave combat.
Oh,
It's a
that
bug.
makes sense.
Yeah, it's different because it's just not developed in the sense of like the whole raid in the stat. And here you go. It's
Yeah.
like trying to find people within range. So as people are moving in and out of range, it just the spaghetti.
Spaghetti
It's,
code?
it's like putting headphones in your pocket, like wired headphones in your pocket.
Oh
There's
God, oh my God. Why would you even go there?
So this may be an aside, but they've actually done mathematical models and scientific experiments that show if you're putting headphones in your pocket, you do what you can and you put them in as small of a space as possible because they're less likely to get tangled when they can't move around.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. The more you know. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Great.
Sorry. That's completely off track. But as we go to the last tree, again, spoilers for the raid, there's a dragon riding fight, which we didn't do when we did our PTR
No,
testing.
we ran out of time.
Yeah.
Look, I can't wait. I can't wait for that. I am so looking forward to that.
It's either going to be an undertuned mess or it's going to be overtuned and just hard.
Well, it's gonna be really hard. The tuning on it, I think the tuning on Mythic is gonna be pretty insane. And then, like, just from like some of my connections and some RWF teams, they're saying they're expecting it to be like Sepulcher level, but we'll see. You know, maybe they'll adjust some things. But I think that boss in particular is like really mechanic dense. So like the in between part is cool, it's the dragon riding part, but the rest of the fight is looking pretty mechanic dense with a lot of personal responsibility. So I think it's gonna make for a pretty interesting fight.
So
I have
some
heard
people will do better than
rumblings.
others.
Yeah, I've heard rumblings the second boss is gonna be our Shock. That like they went ahead and threw that boss as the second one.
What the
That,
Ignara or Igara, whatever her name is?
yeah. And
Really?
yeah. Well, I don't know if that's the one. I'll have to look. I'm terrible with names.
That's the same model as. I mean, I saw Pop Tart Corn Dog do it, and it didn't seem too hard, but that's probably just undertuned.
Yeah. I hear it's gonna
The
be kind of crazy.
jumping around weapon boss.
Yeah,
That looked
that one.
fun on, at least as far as the mechanics go, with the mythic version,
Yeah,
taking 2 weapons instead of 1.
probably because the character models are very similar, art direction or whatever the lore
Yep.
is behind it. Any lore person will probably be like, it's because of this thing. Yeah, I don't know any of that, but that boss definitely gives her Shock vibes.
Yeah. Are we concerned that the dragon riding is a gimmick that's tacked on, or do you think it'd be
Yes,
fun and engaging?
it has the underwater behemoth written all over it again.
I think because it's just from like it's kind of like Sylvanas, like when you have people leaping from one platform to the other. I mean, it's in my opinion, it's not much different than that, except they just threw in dragons and you hit some green orbs on the way over to the other platform. I think it's a good way to implement it from a design standpoint to where like you're not going to be causing too much issues with the developmental process. It's not an overly complex implementation, like from a like game design. I think it was a safe way to do it. I don't know if it feels tacked on as much as it's just, we're just going to fly from one platform to another. It definitely doesn't feel like it's the main part of that fight. You know what I mean? It
I
definitely
think
just
it's
feels
underwhelming.
Well, it's not a Mythic. I have a feeling Max is right. You're gonna be flying through those orbs. And you're gonna be picking up a buff that you desperately need to do the next phase of the fight. If you don't
yeah.
pick up
There's a good
those
chance of that,
buffs,
yeah.
if you don't pick up those buffs, you're gonna be SOL.
Which could feel really bad. So we'll have to see.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
to be fair, looks pretty easy to get the buffs. Like the dragon riding part looks pretty simple.
I heard that they are putting in a NPC to talk to that just does it for you. I hope that that doesn't go live on Mythic at least.
Oh, so it would be like the dragons at the beginning of Vault when you do the first trash, where you're not really super in control.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
wouldn't be that fun. I think player agency, if they're gonna do dragon riding anything, player agency makes that a little bit
I-
more interesting.
I think they're putting it in there for accessibility reasons for people who can't dragon ride or have difficulty doing it or whatever. But at least at the mythic level, I think that should be definitely not included.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a take on it yet. I guess I'd have to see how it works and see the fight fleshed out a little bit more.
Yeah,
Design-wise.
they've done these gimmicks on previous bosses, and it's just I don't know. They just never really go. Call me a cynically old player, but it's just yeah, it just doesn't feel like it ever goes well when they do these gimmicks.
As long as it's kind of a nothing burger, I mean, I think it's like okay, you incorporate
But if
the
it's a
theme of the
nothing burger, then
expansion
why
to a
even
fight.
have it? It's like if it doesn't do anything.
To
A
incorporate
nothing burger.
incorporate the theme of the expansion to the raid. I mean, I kind of get it from a design standpoint, but yeah, if it's not, yeah, if as long as it's not like crazy, difficult to get orbs, get the buff or whatever, and it's just another interaction, I think the immersion of it is kind of cool. But I
I don't know.
typically don't mind too much. I'm not too into like the immersive stuff, but I can like from a designer standpoint, I can understand wanting to have a fight where they do that all the time they put into developing the expansion.
I feel I want there to be some skill expression when it comes to those kinds of things, right? So like with the dragon riding, I want it to be hard to get the damage buff, but exceptionally rewarding to get the damage buff and not required to get the damage buff.
Yeah, as
Does that
someone
make
that
sense?
loves dragon riding, I would be totally cool with that.
Yeah,
So
that's just a general philosophy I have with any fight that has, I guess, an individual's mechanic. Uh, I want some skill expression to happen, something that I'm really good at this. Let me show you how.
Ready for rating.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I've gotten my ready for rating. I can now mythic. Oh man. Okay, so we've talked about the dragon riding a bit. Is there anything else that worries you that you've seen in Ameritrasil?
From normal to Assault, nothing really worries me. I mean, it's just it comes down to their tuning. I mean, if they want this to be the last raid of the expansion and they don't want to do a faded type thing again, they can make this thing really hard and make the time to finish it really long. So that way it gets them basically to pre-patch for October, November release on the 20th anniversary.
I
Which seems
really
Oh,
to
that's right.
which
We're
seems
coming up on
to
a 20th anniversary, aren't
no,
we?
20th and 30th because the game itself because I've been playing this game since middle school, so the real time strategy game came out
Oh,
in
you're talking about
19
Warcraft.
1993. No, sorry, 1994. So
Y'all are
so
making me feel old.
so it'd be a 30th anniversary of the franchise will be next year and the 20th anniversary of WoW.
Wow. I can't believe it's been around that long.
So
Yep.
yeah, because it's old enough now that you have the kids playing of the parents. So that you gain that now. But it just seems too perfect for them not to try to do that. I don't really believe in this summer release stuff. I think they're gonna do it on the anniversary.
Look, they better figure it out soon because I got to take time off work for it.
Well, you'll know at BlizzCon. The pre-order is already in the patch, so it's gonna say will be released by X date, and so you'll know, and then they'll tell you.
Oh,
when.
yeah.
If you believe the leaks.
Look, Metzon's gonna be up on stage. He's gonna tell us what the expansion is gonna be.
I mean, if they're doing an expansion launch and they don't use Metzon to do the actual announcement, there will be a riot.
He was announced to be the executive producer now, so
I know that
he's
doesn't mean
doing it.
they'll throw Ian up there.
Nah, be Metzon.
It needs to be Metzon.
So Jazzy, you missed something.
Did I? Where was I?
So, Pal, this is cutting edge number 6 for you guys, right?
Correct.
And Perp, this is number 2.
Yeah, for Draconic. Mm-hmm.
Right. So 6 in a row, that's pretty big. No.
I mean, it's just our expectation. Like if I hadn't done it, I wouldn't have a team. So it's more just that it's required.
Yeah, I've never done cutting edge. Not gonna lie, probably the only way I'm ever gonna see it is if I buy it.
Yeah, it's just.
Is this where I plug the raid sales? Is this what I do?
Well, we are doing sales. I want to start doing sales middle of anyone listening in the EK. Empire is going to start doing it middle of October. So there you go.
How much do you usually charge for those?
Obscene amount. Jazzy, show me the numbers. It's obscene. It's like 2 gold caps for a cutting edge right now, right? I believe in the mount.
2 gold caps for a full clear. That's all 9 bosses.
Yeah, it's quite a
lot.
big number. So
yeah, that is a lot.
Yeah, I'll be happy with like the first 5 and make 5-6 million for that. But the guild will get a kickback, so we do send our gold back to the team and the guild. So
yeah, it does go to benefit the guild as a whole as well. Well, shockingly, I think that that covers all the topics that we had.
Yeah, in less than an hour.
I don't know. Who are you? What have you done with Shay?
What do you mean? What have you done with Shay?
I don't know. We got through
we
this in
can
an
go.
hour.
I mean, we can go Joe and experience. Just keep talking as random topics flow into other topics. Since I do listen to that podcast.
Yeah, there's plenty of mythic stuff to talk about.
That's normally how it goes with the podcast. we have topics, and we usually cover most of them. We end up taking a couple right turns and then a couple of detours along the way, but
So, Perp, this is your second CE with Draconic. How many is it for you as a player?
I've had a handful. I actually was the raid lead of a 2-night raid lead and GM for a 2-night CE team, a BFA. I've always rated 2-night, and any of the tiers I didn't get CE, I was like on the last boss, and typically it was like guild collapse issues. But I only played on anywhere from a 6 to 8 hour raid schedule up until Draconic. So this was my first time ever doing a 3-night team. So it's much different pacing. But I definitely, in doing so, my expectation was to get CE every tier going forward if I was going to commit to 3 nights.
What was your first CE?
First tier in WAD.
Oh, High Mall.
Yeah, High Mall was my first one.
Okay.
I didn't play Mist. I was taking a break because of college and getting engaged and just kind of missed.
I don't know why I like that dungeon.
High Mall? High Mall is a great instance.
I love that dungeon.
Except for Tectus. Tectus can die in a fire.
Yeah, I love the secret phase of the last boss.
Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. Yeah, and I was just kind of hooked onto, I was a raid leader for, like, I started raid leading like really early on. I started playing in Wrath, and I wanted to get into raiding, and I joined this like really casual group, and I realized like I was like really way higher performance than they were, and I was like, I want to do better because I was playing demo lock, which was highly sought after. And I was like topping the meters, and I was like, I want to, keep pushing myself. But no one but the number one guild on my server at the time wouldn't take me, because their roster was full. So I started a Friday night pug run, and we beat the #1 team on our server to through the first wing of ICC.
I loved
and
ICC.
yeah, Sourfang. So we ended up forming a guild from that team, and I raid led that team until the end of Kata, and then took a break in Mop and came back and took over a team. Like I joined kind of one of those newly formed Mythic teams, like brand new. And well, I guess I came back, played throughout WAD as a raider, and then in BFA, I took over a team because our raid lead got drunk and smashed his keyboard and broke his computer on the second boss in Mythic Old Deer. And they're like, anyone want a shot call for the rest of the tier? And I was like, sure, I'll do it. I'm not gonna probably be able to get in any other raid team. So we were like super late in the tier, and we got to Gahoon, and then next year we got CE.
You got that upset on Mother?
Dude,
Why?
he was.
What?
That boss
I
wasn't
don't
even that
know.
hard.
You never know what's going through. I don't know. I'm just the thing is I'm like just from real life and from in game. Nothing anyone does really typically surprises me, to be honest.
I love that fight just because I remember our heal lead at the time approached the raid lead and was like, "Look, we can just all stack there, and we'll just all go through 2 waves.
We
I'll
could
drop
just
the
SLT,
barrier,
yeah,
SLT,
yeah,
darkness. It'll be fine." My raid lead's like, "No way that works. There's no shot."
yeah. Our raid lead before didn't want to do that, and I actually did that. That was my first decision as the raid lead for that team.
It got so frustrating that finally one night, it was like the last pull. Raid lead was like, "Fine, we'll do it that way." We killed it.
Yeah, it was like way easier doing it that
It
way.
was so much easier.
Yeah,
Oh,
didn't love that tier, but loved BOD. My 2-night team. So we disbanded. It was a lot. I had I had like 2 other officers that weren't doing much, so I was running it by myself. And doing a tier of doing it by yourself will burn you out, and that was me. So I went and raided for myself, and my 2-night team fell apart on Ashara. Because Classic WoW came out, and I was like, well, I guess I'm just done for the tier. It's like really hard to get into other teams as a tank, especially on the last boss. I was like, okay, I'm toast. I'm fucking done for. So my season pretty much ended there. And
Ashara
then,
was not a fun boss.
yeah,
Did not like that boss. LOS mechanics are bad. Blizz, if you're listening, LOS mechanics are bad.
Yeah, no one liked those. I
Look,
didn't like the Imp Dispel crap either. As a
LOS sucks.
LOS is terrible. Palp, you old fogey, what was your first CE?
So I went from LFR Hero to Mythic Raider during HFC.
Okay.
HFC during WAD, like the entire expansion of WAD. So,
Did
buddy
you
of
just say
mine,
LFR Hero?
Oh yeah.
yeah, I was doing LFR. Like I was doing the Ashran grind every day. Like I was just doing
ugh.
all those solo content as like a newbie because I just got back in the game. The client of mine got me playing again, and so I just started playing, and then realized that there's more to raiding than just what I was doing in BlackRock Foundry. And then that was my first AOTC was there, and then joined a small guild called Hellgate that turned out to be named after a boat rental company. But I found out on Storm Raid, and then there we dipped our toe into Mythic during HFC, and then my first cutting edge was Xavius on Lightbringer with the Trust. And then I found my way here during not Eternal Palace, Tomb of Sargeras.
I mean, we can all agree that the actual last boss of Infernal Nightmare was Cenarius.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I basically have every cutting edge from Xavius till now, except for Kill Jaden.
Okay, y'all over here flexing. I gotta throw something in there. I was the raid team that I was on in Burning Crusade. We were world top 50 for Serpent Shrine Cavern and world top 50 for Sunwell.
There you go.
I gotta flex in there somewhere.
Dropping the old school Yupeen.
Yeah, we killed Moor like 2 weeks before they nerfed it.
Yeah, I don't even know what any of that is.
Every time somebody
You never
mentions
did
Baru,
Sunra. Oh,
oh, you never done the Sunwa.
Wrath was my first expansion. That's what I'm saying. I cleared heroic on every difficulty, and then started raid leading in ICC.
I
Actually, I think it was TOC that I started raid
Sun
leading.
Sunwell was horrible. It was so hard. Plus, you didn't have all the mods to help you out. Like, it probably would have been easy now with all the mods that there are, but there was like you had healing mods. That's all you had. There was no DBM. There were no weak auras. Nothing. Back when you took a hunter for True Shot aura,
oh my god, and Hunter still had mana.
and they had to carry ammo.
That's the thing I don't quite get about classic WoW is that we're all better than we were back then, and the mechanics back then were very easy. So it's just like doing old content that you can smash with modern tools. I'm not quite sure what's fun about it.
I mean, so I dabbled a bit in the hardcore and immediately lost interest very quickly when I realized that, oh yeah, I die quickly. I kind of get it, but agree that it's when they first launched First Classic and they had the big like race to world first classic molten core whatever, and a bunch of people went in there at 58 and killed Rag.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was kind of like you guys remember this used to be new and now it's not.
Look, I played Classic for all of about 2 hours, and then
Yeah.
I remembered, I've done this to myself once. Why am I doing this to myself again? And I never touched it again.
Yeah, I did this back when it was current. I'm done. I paid my dues.
Yeah, pretty much. Look, I did it through alpha, and then through beta, and then when it was current.
I remember farming soul shards. I remember soul shard bags for Warlock just so I could summon people. I remember.
So, my mage was my original character. One launch, not in alpha or beta. I messed with a paladin there. I leveled my mage. I got her to 10, and then so I could sheep stuff. And then she sat, and I went back and leveled a paladin.
I'll forgive you.
I leveled a paladin because I was in college when the game launched. So for me, I was like super casual back then. I mean, I was working 2 jobs and going to school, so like I had no time. But I remember leveling a paladin first, and I still have the paladin today. It's just a different name than it used to be.
She is currently sitting on our server, and she needs 15 item levels to do an all paladin run if we can get enough people for it.
I did not sign up for that.
Chazzy.
I used that paladin I leveled up was the paladin I was on in SOD, and I would still have it leveled to 70 if I didn't make a Zandalari troll just to have a horde tune for the guild, and then made that paladin my main.
That's okay. But I actually have a few more like I think talking points that we could discuss about like mythic stuff.
Hit it.
Yeah, I want to aim this at Palp and then follow up with my question and discussion as well. But okay, so looking at the N-tier bosses this season and last season, so Raz versus Sarkareth, what were your team's specific like blockers on those fights? Like what were the challenges that y'all kind of came across and like how did you adjust? And I can speak to what we ran across too.
So our biggest issue on Sark was summer vacations.
Yeah.
There's constant roster swap. There was a time, Jazzy remembers it very well, where it was like every night was a different roster.
Yesterday?
And he was telling me like how many different combinations there are that we could use before I went on vacation for my own self. So for us, the issue was not so much the mechanic, it was just having consistency on our own roster. So the people having polls knew what they were doing, and that you wouldn't have to like reprog with somebody who was brand new to the fight. And I mean, when we finished Prague, we had some people who had double the polls of the people who were there the entire time, and we had some that had a sixth of the polls that were there the entire time. So it was just straight up, because that fight was a dance. It was like, okay, range has to do this, range bait this, range do this, range do that. It was a very range intensive fight, which hurt us too, because the range were the people who had the most churn I felt. And it just showed in the numbers because it was just like range had to do everything on that fight. And then it was like, okay, who's doing bombs? Well, the bomb person's out tonight, so they had a new person do bombs, or who's baiting the breath, or who's it's like everything was just roster consistency for us was the biggest problem. And when I compare that to Razzie, we had very little swaps going on between the first pull and the last pull, and that prog felt smoother because of that. Whereas the Sark prog felt terrible because the roster caused the longevity, which then caused the burnout, which just caused everything to kind of domino.
Right. But y'all still got there.
We got there, but it was just like if we had the same 20 from pull 1 to the end, it would not take us as long because people just got comfortable a lot quicker.
Yeah. Okay, so for us, we also had some roster issues. Like I said, had a couple of those new players that, you put them in their first rotation and they're used to being in on every fight because they're pumpers, but like they're having mechanical issues, so you rotate them out to give other people game time. We had people leave because of that, and I think that's just like I said, that's just a greenhorn kind of like canon event. You're new to CE rating, you get rotated, you get frustrated and leave. That is like pretty canon for a lot of new CE raters, or attempting to be CE raters. But yeah, we had on Raz for us, we had our team restructuring and reorganization on Brood, which was a pretty big undertaking, and most of that kind of just impacted Brood prog. And then we had just like performance issues and lots of rotations on Razageth, which caused us to have a pretty decently high pull count. I had co-tank issues as well, but I had that all season last season and most of this season.
I guess that's the difference between us is that I don't really think we have any greenhorns on our team, Jazzy, right? Most everyone on the team has a cutting edge, either double digits or more than just one.
Yeah, recruitment
So
rough out there though, so I
right,
definitely took
it's
some risk
rougher.
on some people.
Right. But for us, it wasn't so much like new to cutting edge. It just was like it was just this constant swaps.
But we had to make swaps, so we had a couple people that left because of that. But then I had like on Raz, we definitely had a lot of attendance issues, along with we just had some performance issues. So we were like rotating people out. We were trialing people that were like 2 out of 8 mythic, and like some of those people ended up being core players of ours now, who are now like some of our best players, or were some of our best players, and it was really interesting. So this time, with the expectation, like we knew we were gonna have a couple people out, especially on the healer core, and we knew that we were gonna have some DPS out, and my whole tanking situation was kind of up in the air, like my co-tank. Um, so I was still doing recruiting, not much of it, but we decided early to just, instead of having the same mistake as last season, if we were gonna have lots of rotations anyway, the first week, like on the half of every night, we were just rotating people to give everyone game time, to try to get everyone the same amount of experience in like phase 1 and that transition. Because we knew we were gonna have people out, so I was just rotating everybody. Like everybody was getting game time, and we thought that might be a decent way to handle it, and it worked out, I think. But you still feel the impact of people going on vacations or getting married, and real life stuff, kind of interfering on a CE tier boss. But that was the way we decided to try to get ahead of it a little bit, which I think it definitely helped. But much like y'all, I still feel like we had a pretty high pull count, and I had 2 different tanks. We had multiple healers swapping in and out. We had multiple DPS swapping in and out, and that's going to inflate pull count on any team.
The audacity of people having what are they called? Lives?
Yeah,
Did
touching
I
What?
pronounce
grass.
that right?
What is that?
I don't even know what that is or where to get one. I would have returned it. Sounds like way too much work.
Not to get all political and shit, but what the fuck is grass?
It's that green stuff that's in my front yard.
What's a yard?
You don't have a yard?
I live in an
I have a
apartment, so
yard.
no.
I'm on a 3rd
Oh.
floor.
Exactly,
On a
3rd
dirt.
floor.
Oh god. Yeah, no, that's the green stuff that's in my front yard that I don't cut.
Is that what Rita's for?
No, Rita doesn't do it.
Slacker.
We have a guy in the neighborhood that cuts grass, and not gonna lie, I'll pay him to cut it, so I ain't got to.
Get a
Yep.
couple goats.
Right? Get that ag tax right off. There you go.
Look, you know
Not only are
what?
they cute, but they also just do your lawn for you.
If I could have a goat, I would, but I'm not allowed to have one, and it makes me very, very
Yeah, that's
sad.
bullshit.
Yeah, no. Get a goat. Goats are best.
It makes me. I want a duck.
Ducks are
Ducks
great.
are hilarious.
I love ducks.
I could set the kiddie pool up in the backyard and let them play in the kiddie pool. It'd be great.
They are so cute. When my wife and I volunteer at this animal refuge that's around here, and they have like a duck sanctuary. And when you let them out in the morning, they do their little happy feet dances, and it's the cutest fucking thing ever. They just fly out to the water and they do their little happy feet. It's so cute.
I want to go to the duck sanctuary.
They have cows
Yeah.
now. Cows are adorable too.
They have cows.
Cows are so dumb.
No, they're really cute. They're not as dumb as
They're
you think.
adorable. They're great, but they're just dumb.
They're not. That's like they're super playful. They'll
It's all
Oh,
an
play.
they're
act.
great.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree. They are absolutely fun. They're great. I love them to death, but just
I don't think
hilarious.
they're. I mean,
They're
they definitely don't learn like some things, but they're definitely as affectionate as
Oh yeah.
like dogs and stuff. They're very
Oh
sweet
yeah.
to me.
Dude. And what's up with the fuzzy cows?
Moo?
Yeah, those are cute. Those like Scandinavian cows.
Oh yeah.
Yes. They're
Yeah,
fuzzy.
super fluff.
Many fluff.
Okay, I had off topic, but I did have another set of questions, and I'm trying to
Off
remember how
topic
I
of the
worded it.
cows? That's
Yeah,
rude.
but this is um, oh, it's definitely about next season, and I lost it.
I have one.
Waycrest.
Well, besides Waycrest being the absolute best dungeon, that's not up for a discussion. Um, Hunters recently got
Oh, good point. Yeah.
the Hunter's Mark is a 5% damage buff to targets above 80% health
Uh-huh.
by
What?
any damage, not
Yeah.
just the Hunter,
What?
all damage.
Yeah. So over
So
the course of a fight, it's like 1%, but
Max ran the
But
math, and it's about
still.
1% raid DPS increase. Hooray!
which
Is that enough?
I think I don't know. I think there should be like an execute element to it,
I agree.
or they bump that number a little bit. But still, I think the fact that it's at the beginning, especially in a lot of cases where if we're just full sending less than cooldowns at the beginning, we're gonna see a lot of value out of it, right? So there'll still be more value to it than I think people are kind of dooming about.
There's
But
value if you need to push through the first phase, right? Because you're gonna get through that first 80%
or if there's a
faster.
prio ad target, right?
Or if there's a prio ad, yeah, for sure.
So I definitely see value. I think there'll be a reason to bring one hunter, which makes it now we're looking at maybe 4 slots in the raid that we can actually just flex like things that aren't needed, which is wild.
Wait, you only have one hunter?
Yeah.
We have
Well,
like 4.
well, I'm saying you would want to bring it because there's no reason to bring a hunter anyway. Like right now, there's no reason to bring a hunter unless they're just a Giga Chad player. But if you have a Giga Chad player of any other spec, you just bring that.
They
Kind of
don't
like an
bring.
elemental shaman.
Yeah, well,
I don't
they're better
understand what
than
being
Ellie.
said.
Ellie, just delete it.
Yeah, it makes me sad, and that's why I'm very, 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 very much considering switching to my shadow priest.
I think you're just in denial at this point.
I'm sad, Jazzy. I like my shaman.
Yeah, I'm not taking Ellie shamans right now. I've had a few interested that were pretty good players, but I'm just no
I'll give you
interest in an
I'll
Ellie.
give you Shandy. He's really, really good. Like
Is it
really,
an
really,
Ellie?
really. Yes, he is
Yeah,
really, really good, and he pulls. He's like orange parses every pool in that
right,
shaman.
right. But what I'm saying is like I'm not taking any Ellie shamans. Like any.
Just because of Ellie Shaman, not because of them.
Yeah, no, I had orange and purple mythic parse Ellie apply because they want to get CE right with us, and I'm just like, nah, I'm good.
Poor shamans.
Yeah, look, it's not poor shaman, it's poor elemental.
Enhances like the, unironically, Enhance is actually the best shaman spec right now.
Ellie
Um,
hasn't been the best shaman spec since I think Mists of Pandaria.
It's had its moments in keys where it was better than enhanced by a lot. So
Especially if you're like
and then
casters,
Resto
Earthquake actually does work.
Resto has had plenty of moments, especially with its throughput. If its throughput was tuned well, and alongside of its DR, has definitely been a meta spec. So shamans have been good. LE in raid and it's had its moments, and anything is viable in most
And it's
cases.
very short-lived.
But they're making it tougher. Like, because Resto Shaman's not great. We found, like, most of this season, we didn't really want our Resto Shaman in as far as composition. It's just unfortunate that their throughput struggles this season because the DR is good. We found a lot of value for the DR and the B-Res totem on phase 1 of Sarkareth. That pretty
Yep.
much saved our prog. Like,
Mhm.
that helped us prog so much. So there was value there. Next season, I think it's until we see some tuning. I mean, if current trends continue, I think Resto Shaman won't see as much gameplay next season unless you really need some of the utility, like from
We're
the
just
like the
gonna have our
DR.
Resto. I'm talking our Resto Shaman, have him go disc and have the barrier instead of an SLT. So
Yeah, it's probably the smarter move.
That's a weird
Because
way
it-
to say paints up.
well, because it's also just another. Even though nerfing PI, you're still going to want it, and by them nerfing it, just means you're going to give it be even more selective on who gets it at what time. So
Mhm.
you're going to want to have a few PIs in the raid, and if I have the choice between a shaman and a disc priest, I'll take a disc priest that's getting reworked with uppies and everything else over a shaman, just because of fight design, and rework typically means the class is good.
Yeah, I actually think
Barrier is so strong.
there's also I'm interested to see how the healing thing turns out, but we have one of each healing spec, so we're ready to go. As far as
Who you want to bring?
composition, yeah. And
Are we
then
are we calling sleeper healer Mistweaver?
yeah, I mean it was the sleeper healer this tier, and I think next tier it's looking just as good in raid. And with how good blood decay is potentially going to be, there's a very good shot you see a lot of double blood on some of these fights, which I'll probably have my blood decay ready to go. I mean, it's already equally geared to my monk, so I'll probably just keep up with the two. But you know how we've seen how good blood is looking in this raid. It just looks. There might be fights where double blood is just really really strong, just because you can ignore mechanics.
Don't tell
Look.
Jazzy, because then he'll be forced to get his. I don't even know if his blood decay is even 70.
No, my blood decay is not 70. Dead Jazzy is still like 61. I'll get
Yeah.
her up.
Look. Wait. Are you Alliance or are you Horde?
Are you seriously asking me this question?
I mean, you're Alliance. Cool. If you want to do dungeons, let me know. I'll bring one of my DPS with you.
Are you asking if any of my tunes are not a gnome?
The good
Do
thing
you
about
know
tanks is
me?
we get insta Q leveling, so
Right?
we don't need help. We are the help.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
but you know what? It's more fun if you take a friend.
Sure
Sure.
about that?
Tell me we didn't have fun gearing your druid, Jazzy.
Oh my god, that was ridiculous. And I haven't logged into him since.
Neither have I. And it'll be the same thing the next time we do the all druid run. I'll be rushing around like the 2 weeks leading up to it, getting her to the item level that she needs to be.
Something about the whole double. Something tells me if there's a mechanic or raid that has you class stacking the tanks, Blizzard will counter that.
Oh, I'm sure.
They don't. They haven't
They tend to
really
not want
liked that. Yeah. They'll
They
they'll
they don't
counter
want you to
something.
class stack pretty much ever. Like just hard class stacking. They really don't want that. Just look at what happened with Og, right? Oh, we have like 4 Ogs and nerfed.
Yeah. Now you're
Yeah.
gonna want. Now you want 2 max. So
Yeah,
I
we
guess
have.
it just depends, but like blood just has AMS
For
and
certain fights, the AMS, the AMZ, those are just ignoring stuff. Yeah.
yeah, it's just gonna be really, really strong. Plus they're gonna have the legendary. Um
Don't remind me.
yeah.
Missed
Yeah,
opportunities, Blizz.
they're our main tank is a blood death knight. He bounces between his death knight and his demon hunter, but I'm pretty sure he's settling doing the death knight like next year, and then our off tank bounces between a paladin and a druid. She was on her warrior for a very very brief time period, but she tends to bounce between the the paladin and the druid. So
Yeah. I raid buff for my team, so most likely I'm gonna be Brew and Vengeance. I was really excited to do that before. I love Brew. This is my first expansion as Brew, and I'm getting pretty decent at it now. I love it. Like I'm obsessed.
It's the
one of the
best.
more challenging specs I've ever played. And I have DPS and healed as every role and spec in Mythic
yeah,
raid setting.
you don't want to put me on a monk.
But-
I'll fly off a cliff.
But I was like really excited about the Vengeance rework, and yeah,
It's gonna be great in keys.
That no, it's not. That copium was destroyed.
I still think
It's
they're
bad.
good.
Good, sure, but like good, probably not. Like they're gonna be potentially not as good as they were this season, even though they're gonna have double sigils of everything. We'll see how they tune it, but right now it is very clunky and its survivability
It's
is
incomplete.
extremely
Yeah.
questionable. It is not ready for this live. There has to be some iterations of it, or it's gonna because currently it's like the worst raid tank, and it's probably still gonna be the worst raid tank because
That I believe.
DK just does everything better than Vengeance does. The only thing is, and I don't think it's likely, is if you don't if Havoc is terrible, then you obviously want to get the Vengeance in. But with the rework for Havoc, they're gonna tune it. It's gonna be good, and they're already starting to make a lot of quality of life changes for them. So I'm not too worried about the Vengeance, like the Demon Hunter buff, especially where Havoc is. But yeah, my Vengeance and Keys Copium is kind of dead right now. We'll see.
Yeah, we're ready for DK, Paladin, Monk, and Warrior are at our disposal if we want them for any fight.
Yeah,
So,
we have. I was gonna do Warrior, but with the Legendary, there's no shot we're never gonna have a Warrior in raid. So I don't think Prot Warrior is gonna bring too much. There's really usually never too much value for Prot Warrior unless you don't have a
no,
Warrior.
we have just our roster has the flexibility on the specs to do that, so we can mix around and
Yeah,
like we did on this tier. So we just go with whatever helps us kill the boss faster.
yeah.
Because
I just think of it in the sense of what DPS are gonna be good, and can I cover raid buffs? Because like if you know if Druid's gonna be really bad and all of the only Druids we have are gonna be balanced, then I might actually play Guardian as an alt. It just like that's how I think about it typically. Because I think with Warriors having a legendary, there's just no way. They're always pretty decent. Like we'll just have Warriors in. But with Havoc, it's always been I've tanked with the Vengeance all tier. One, we could never find a Havoc Demon Hunter because recruiting a good one is very hard, and two, it just wasn't very good anyway. So
We have one, and you can't have him.
we're not poaching.
I was on my Warrior for Vault, and given that I basically have been a brewmaster for ever, I was so bored. Warrior is way easier than
There's only 3 fun tank specs,
I know.
and everyone knows what they are. I shouldn't
Brew,
even
brew, and then the third one. Oh, brew.
brew, and brew. Brew, blood, and VDH are fun.
Yeah, I'll
Everything
agree with
else is
this.
kind of mid.
I haven't tanked in a minute.
All right. Well, I think we covered everything we need to cover.
Yes, we did.
Any parting words?
Good luck, Paradigm. Good luck, Gravity. Your time is coming.
Yeah.
They probably have, my guess, since Blizzard is doing that guild clash at BlizzCon, the raid's not going to come out till, you said 2 weeks after BlizzCon, the second Tuesday?
Probably.
Second Tuesday after.
Yeah, not the first. The first Tuesday after is too close. They can't fly them into
No, they
BlizzCon and
wouldn't do
fly
that,
them
yeah.
straight out. So it'll be the week after that. So what is
It's
that?
2 to 3 weeks out, easy.
They may even. I was thinking patch on Tuesday after BlizzCon and raid the
The
following
14th.
Tuesday.
The 14th.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just because in Thanksgiving is what, the 23rd. That's the only issue, is that if they do that on the 14th, Thanksgiving is the 23rd. So because the fourth Thursday of November.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a kind of a screwy thing for a lot of our teams who rate Thursdays, and that whole
Unless they
week
really push it.
they could push till after Thanksgiving. But again, it goes back to what do they want this raid tier to accomplish? Do they want this one to go all the way to pre-patch, you delay it a couple weeks, you make it really long, or not really long, but you up the difficulty by upping the item level difference, and then you'll get it. And if you go till November or mid-November, late November, your raid's gonna go 6-7 months. That puts you at June.
Do we
And
really think
that's
there's not going to be a 0.3 patch?
no, there won't be a 0.3 patch.
Definitely
already-
been alluded that there won't be.
Yeah, they come out there and basically said this is, the reason why this is my tinfoil hat, but the BlizzCon announcement is going to be based off of what happened in the dungeon, the bronze dragonfly with the Ridicron. So that is not going to be like, nothing that happens in the raid is going to spoil what 11.0 is, because they're not going to burn the tree for the second time. So spoiler, we are going to save the tree. So
Spoiler.
Spoilers.
I think if anybody thinks the tree is going to blow up, is living in Fantasyland. So we will save the tree. Farak is going to die. So nothing there is really earth shattering, meaning Blizzard can base 11.0 on what happened with the Ridicron and that portal. So
Yeah, they're just gonna be like, old gods controlled them. They made them
Yeah.
do it. New
Yeah,
expansion,
yeah.
void.
It's
Right.
always the old gods.
Yeah, so that whole thing. So yeah, so if they want this thing to go till pre-patch, you could have a pre-patch in the summertime for 2 months and launch in the fourth quarter, and not even do that faded stuff again.
Yeah,
And then
I think they're gonna do the half patch, and then they're gonna do the 0.7 or whatever.
the 0.5, 0.7, sure, and then pre-patch 2 months, September or late August, and then 2 months puts you right there on the anniversary date. So
Yeah, they said they wanted to start rolling out the expansions more like just big content updates. So I think they're trying to change not only the cadence in which they do everything, but at least the way I've heard them word it is they want the feel of these like content releases to just be a little bit faster paced.
I mean, it's not even launch of next year is not faster.
no, it's just
Every
normal.
2 years, it's
It's every 2
normal.
years.
It just
Yeah.
feels like it's faster because we've had only one. Like we've gone through, you know, 10 or yeah, 10.1, 10.0, 10.1, 10.15, 10.17,
Yeah,
and
the cadence of patches is better.
yeah, even though each individual patch wasn't really a lot, like it wasn't massive. It was enough to keep you interested in playing and everything, and felt like enough. But I don't know. It doesn't feel like Dragonflight's been out for a year.
Well, their last patches tend to do best, and hopefully some more players will come back and we'll retain more like high-end players, at least for the CE side of things and Mythic plusers and stuff like that. That way we can just have a little bit more of a populated season.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's definitely up to them on how they balance and how fun the content is. But the raid looks super fun, so I'm pretty optimistic.
It does. Hope it's good. Hope it's tuned well. And bug free.
Good luck with that.
Yep, thanks for the time.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Jazzy.
anywho. So thanks for joining us. Palpatine, we're looking forward to Cutting Edge number 7. Perp, we're looking forward to number 3 from you guys, and hopefully Paradigm will be joining you guys soon. So if we do this again, we'll have a third person in here.
Yeah,
and
for
then
sure.
Paradigm, and don't forget Gravity. They're coming up.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know
they
where
are.
the progression is comparatively. But they
Gravity's made
both,
some good prog. It just depends on, how they keep getting through each phase. But yeah, Gravity's
Yeah.
kind of at the 100 range where they're getting through the first intermission and then into second
Yeah.
phase. And
and they
Paradigm is, they had a little bit of a wall, but their leadership is working super hard to get the ball rolling again next week. So definitely look forward to seeing where they prog on the next reset.
Yeah, I
Jazzy, we
think
may have to do another one with with Paradigm and Gravity if they get it.
Sure.
I mean, there's plenty of time that they both should get it, so we should have 4 in the guild for the season.
Definitely
Yeah.
want that.
I think
Has
they're
that
both
has that ever
capable.
been a thing?
Well,
Yes.
when I think 3 was our max in Legion, wasn't it? Because I was
Nope.
part of the 3. Who's
4 in bod. Jaina, we got 4.
Oh, okay.
Because we farmed the ever-living crap out of that mount.
But I thought Vanguard. Who was the fourth? It was
SIP and whoever the other one was.
Whoever the other one was.
well,
I
because
think
Force.
it may
Force.
have been Gravity.
Wasn't Force still? Didn't Force
No.
leave after Bod?
No.
They left before.
Yeah, they left in Legion.
Okay.
Looking forward to it though.
I just remember for me it was 3. It was Sellswords, Force, and Vanguard at the time when I was here the first time. So
So
yeah, 4 would be good.
We'll get there. Anywho, before we go off on another tangent, thank you guys for joining us. Jazzy, it's been a pleasure as always, and we will see you guys next time.
Yep, bye,
thanks,
y'all.
y'all.